Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the school committee meeting to order. Today is Monday, January 8th, 2024. The time is 6:04 p.m. Our next meeting will take place on Monday, February 5th at 6 p.m. here in the council chamber. As always, we will first pledge allegiance to our flag. We'll then take a moment to remember those who have served our country and continue to do so today. Our clerk will then call the roll to ensure that we have a quorum sufficient to allow us to come together for tonight's meeting. We will then introduce our translation services for the evening, and then we will go into this evening's agenda, which consists of approval of the minutes from December 4th, 2023 regular session, and special session minutes of January 2nd, 2024. We will then have public comment, and that's an opportunity for anyone to address the school committee. We only ask that you state your name and address for the record. Our vice chair, Jennifer Spatafora, will monitor for 2 minutes. We will allow 2 minutes per speaker. After public comment, we'll then hear from our school superintendent on what's happening across the district. The next item on the agenda is the announcement of this session's subcommittee assignments. I don't see anything under motions and resolutions right now. We will then take points of personal privilege from the members, and then we will move adjournment. School committee member Joe Gray will be participating via Zoom, so we will be roll calling everything as a result of that. Any questions of the members? Hearing none, let's salute our flag. Where is it? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd ask everyone to please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of all those who have fought for our country and continue to do so today. Thank you. We will now have our clerk call the roll.
Mayor Christenson?
Here.
Mr. Drummy?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Spatafora?
Here.
Ms. Macklin?
Here.
Ms. Authy?
Here.
Mr. Gray?
Mr. Here. Mr. Gray.
Mr. Bernard?
Here.
Ms. Rose-Iber?
Here.
Superintendent Noriega Murphy?
Here.
Student Representative Abel?
She's out here. Okay. All right, we have a quorum sufficient to allow us to come together. Let's now have our vice chair introduce the translation services for this evening.
Thank you. Fox Translation, we're going to activate your channels now and just give it a second to test to make sure that we cannot hear you. And for those at home, once the translation has been activated, you can use the interpretation button at the bottom to choose the language in which you would like to participate. So, interpretation has been activated and we should be good to go. Just give a quick test. I'm going to talk here for a second to make sure I can't hear any of you. All right, we're good.
Very good. And as always, to the members and anybody addressing the school committee, please speak slowly so the words can be translated. Regular session minutes of December 4th, 2023. So there's been a motion made by Mr. Drummy, seconded by Mr. McCarthy. Again, these are the regular session minutes of December 4th, 2023. Any questions on them? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummy? Yes. Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spatafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin?
Yes.
Ms. Authy?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard?
Yes.
Ms. Rose-Iber?
Yes.
Mayor Christenson?
Yes, those carry unanimously. Special session minutes of January 2nd, 2024. Motion by Ms. Spatafor, seconded by Mr. Bernard. Everybody's had a chance to look those over. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummy? Yes. Mr. McCarthy? Yes. Ms. Spatafor?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard? Yes. Ms. Rose Zeiber?
Yes.
Mayor Christenson?
Yes, that motion carries unanimously. We're now down to public comment. Again, this is an opportunity for members of the public to address the school committee. We only ask that you state your name and address for the record, and public comment will be available 2 minutes per speaker. Our vice chair, Ms. Spatafor, will alert you at the 30-second mark. So we typically do.
A minute 30 seconds.
Minute
So
30, right.
seconds
Yeah,
left.
30 seconds left. All right, let me turn this on. Public comment is now open. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, school committee members and Mayor Christenson. My name is Tina Weldi, and I live at 97 Hill Street. I was a teacher in Malden and a member of the MEA for over 20 years, now retired. I'm choosing to speak up this evening because of an unprecedented motion passed by the Massachusetts Teachers Association Executive Board. This motion is unprecedented because the MTA has never involved itself in international affairs. Despite that, their December 9th statement is entirely biased because it singularly denounces the actions of the Israeli government. It makes no demand for release or even mention of the hostages taken during the barbaric massacre on October 7th. They call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire while making no mention of Hamas, whose openly declared mission is to annihilate Israel and the Jewish people. The MTA's mission has nothing to do with this message, which only serves to alienate and divide its membership and the community at large. It is especially disheartening that this misguided motion was seconded and co-signed by the president of the MEA, Malden Education Association, which I believe reflects poorly on the city of Malden. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the committee? Good evening.
Good evening, Amy Friedman, 8 Marvin Street. I'm speaking in opposition to a new contract for Ms. Noriega Murphy. In September of 2022, Ms. Spatafor addressed questions surrounding Ms. Noriega Murphy's academic credentials. You said that you all were provided proof of her doctorate in the form of transcripts from the University of Salamanca, but you had all signed legal documents preventing the disclosure of same to the public because Noriega Murphy was in the midst of legal proceedings, going on to infer that proof would be revealed when those proceedings concluded. Over a year later now, the public has yet to see proof that Ms. Noriega Murphy has a doctorate degree. I would urge you to come to terms with the poor decisions of the past and the tumultuous tenure since then, and not offer Ms. Noriega Murphy a new contract as our superintendent. What was supposed to be thorough vetting by an outside firm in the hiring process failed to raise a number of very troubling issues. That she was using the moniker of doctor, yet did not include it on her resume when she applied. While headmaster of the Boston English School, Ms. Noriega Murphy recommended the hiring of Sean Harrison as a dean of students. He worked under her for supervision for a period of 7 months. During that time, was recruiting students to sell drugs, orchestrated the assault of a student in a school bathroom, and was convicted of shooting that student in the head. While she was not held legally responsible for those events in a civil lawsuit, one would certainly think that it would have impacted the schools committee's hiring decision, but there's no evidence that it ever came up in the hiring process. In 2022, students organized a massive walkout related to the superintendent's firing or non-renewal of over 100 educators and staff. Students called for
30
her
seconds.
removal, and the MEA had a vote of no confidence. There were another 50 or so non-renewals the following year, and our district remained significantly understaffed. Less than 8 months after the educators' strike that led to a new contract, over 60 grievances had been filed for MPS's failure to comply with same. A Department of Labor Relations complaint is now pending, resulting from Noriega Murphy's actions locking the president of the MEA out of work sites in 2023. She's defended a curriculum that doesn't address the needs of our special
Time.
educated students, and an
Thank you.
evaluation performed by the MEA in June of 2023.
Thank you.
Resulted in 52% of the membership rating
Anybody else
her
wishing to
as
address the school committee
unsatisfactory
can do
or
so
needs
now.
improvement. Her
Thank you.
contract should not be renewed.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the school committee can do so now. We only ask that you state your name and address for the record. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Lori Ardai, 41 Williams Street. So, I'm the parent of two girls who attended and graduated from the Malden Public Schools. They are both granddaughters of a Holocaust survivor. I know when my oldest was a senior, the senior class had an assembly where they got to listen to a Holocaust survivor talk. I was there and the room was silent as all the students listened. And now I'm the mother of a current college student, and I'm aware of like all the anti-Semitism happening in college campuses. And I was so glad that I never had to deal with this when my kids were at Malden Public Schools. And because at Malden Public Schools, the diversity of the students was always very much appreciated. But recently, I saw the Boston Globe article on a teachers' union resolution that seemed very biased. I also saw a blue and gold article that was posted as fact, not opinion, regarding an analysis of history. I actually wanted to read the blue and gold article again to make sure I understood it, since it seemed very one-sided, but the article was gone from the website. These two things have made me feel like we went from a caring school system for all students to one that seemed to be struggling with caring about the social, emotional well-being and safety of our Jewish students, faculty, and staff. I hope we can move beyond politics and keep a united focus on being supportive for all our students as well as faculty and staff.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, 1 second. Do you want to just, is there anybody online? No hands raised? Okay, we're just going back and forth between those that are online. We don't see anyone, so. 1 second. The interpreter has her.
Isabel, on translation. Oh, you know why? Because you're on translation, I can't hear you.
Maybe she can direct message you.
You should have my phone number to text me. Text me and let me know. Okay, thank you.
In the meantime, good evening.
Good evening. I've never done this before. Please give me a warning even before 30 seconds. My name is Jessica Slavin Connolly. I know many of you either personally or just from the interwebs. And I am a parent of an 11-year-old, and I live here in Malden at 17 Corey Road. We moved here in 2010. I was raised in Medford. I am the granddaughter of Jewish grandparents who fled from the pogroms in Eastern Europe. I am an involved Malden citizen. In 2012, I established the Malden Young Families Facebook group, which has over 1,500 families and has been a resource for families coming into Malden and connecting with each other in a very positive way. I am involved in Malden Porch Fest, where we host one of the larger music events for the community, and I am one of the original members of the Malden Hanukkah Committee who brought the Hanukkah celebration
40
to share.
seconds.
I am afraid right now to send my son back to Malden Public Schools. He is currently in Jewish day school. The plan had always been for him to come back to go to Malden Public High. That's what he wants, and that's what we want. And with what I have seen since October 7th, I don't feel safe having him there as a Jewish identified student. And I'm really hoping that we can come together beyond politics to teach our children. And I will say I was an ADL interfaith youth facilitator for 6 years, where I ran a program with Christian, Muslim, Jewish
2 minutes.
students and clergy from all over the state, and we did wonderful things. And I'd like to see that happen at Malden High.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the school committee? Good
Thank
evening.
you to the school committee for allowing us to speak. Edwin Andrews, 83 Cleveland Street. My wife and I moved to Malden nearly 37 years ago because it was affordable and there was a strong Jewish community. Over the years, I've always enjoyed comparing our immigrant history, my mother was born in Morocco, with our neighbors and other Malden friends. It saddens me that we now must respond to this MTA statement on Israel and Hamas. The war in Israel and Gaza started when Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th on Simchat Torah, a joyous festival celebrating the giving of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. Israel has been under attack since then with rockets fired by Hamas into civilian areas with the intention of killing as many Israelis as possible. Israel has responded as any nation would, demolishing the elaborate tunnels built under hospitals, mosques, and other civilian areas, and destroying the large amount of weapons Hamas has stockpiled. I am at a loss to understand why the Malden Teachers Association feels compelled to speak on this conflict. It's divisive and unprecedented for the MTA to make a statement on international affairs in the name of Massachusetts educators. However, since they made the decision to bring international politics into the arena of Malden teachers' concerns, they should understand that Israel, just as any other nation, has the right and obligation to defend itself from an enemy that has sworn to destroy her and her people in the most vicious, heinous ways imaginable. The MTA has no more standing on commenting on this conflict than if they were to comment on other international events. The MTA should be concerned with making sure that Malden schools provide a fair and balanced education to all its students, regardless of gender, race, religion, or ethnicity. We in the diverse community of Malden should celebrate our commonalities and learn from our differences, rather than remarking on conflicts
30
thousands of
seconds.
miles away, since that may only serve to divide us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Please.
Good evening, my name is Marilyn Andrews, and I also live at 83 Cleveland Street. I hadn't planned on speaking, but I will certainly honor the 2-minute limit. I grew up Catholic, very fortunate to marry a wonderful man that was Jewish, learned a lot beyond meat and potatoes in the Irish household. When we looked at housing, we looked at Malden, very happy from the start. I think the thing that impressed me the most about Malden is there were so many people here that grew up Malden, so I could learn about the history, but there's so many people that came to Malden from so many parts of the world. My husband mentioned a minute ago that my mother-in-law is from Morocco, and that has really opened my world. I felt once my oldest son, Joshua, started kindergarten in 2004, he would be in a very good situation, and Jeremiah a few years later, because he wasn't the only, it was very diverse, so he wasn't just looking at himself in the mirror and thinking he was the whole world. And I think that's, even my husband and I coached Malden Youth Soccer, the same thing. So they grew up with a really kind of good background. What saddens me as an educator for a good number of years, and now an educational advocate, is that an educational association come out and say something that is very hurtful to my family and hurtful to my children too. I hate to say it, please don't be offended, because I think Malden has a good school system, but I'm glad they're not in the schools. No offense, Superintendent, because you know I think you're wonderful. But I don't know what kind of dynamic it creates behind the scenes, and that's my opinion. I could be completely wrong. Again, it's a good school system. But I just worry about, does this create divisiveness if somebody who's in the leadership role says, okay, this is how we're going to react, because I have my political opinions as a teacher, but they stayed outside, because my job was to educate the students. So I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Anybody online?
I do have one hand raised.
Okay, we're going to go online for 1 second. And then Ms. Littlejohn will go to you next.
All right, the Zoom user, there is no name associated, so if you could please.
I will tell you my name. My name is Andrew Zyberg. I live at 86 Lawrence Street in Malden.
Welcome.
And I just want to, I'm not going to repeat what the other speakers have said because I'm in agreement with them, but I think it's imperative that there is some type of investigation by the school committee as to why a member of the president of the MEA has signed a letter on behalf of a full union when I don't believe that the whole union is behind this document that was signed. I don't know how this was done, but I believe that if you're speaking for a full union, that concerns me that our teachers are behind this, and that causes me concern for our Jewish students and for our Jewish teachers in the school system, and that they would feel that they could be discriminated against because of their religion. I think it's imperative that some type of investigation be done to find out why the Malden Education Association, most especially the president of the association, is getting involved in international politics when their job is to educate our students and not, as a whole, get involved in international issues. People have a right for freedom of speech, I understand that, but when you're speaking on behalf of a union, of a group of people that all may not be behind this document, then I think that's a problem, that somebody's
30 seconds.
opinion will be overlooked and or not taken into consideration. So I'm requesting that an investigation be done as to why this has happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zyberg. And I think the MEA president would be the first to tell you that we don't have any jurisdiction over that association. But this meeting is being recorded, and there are members from the association that are here, and I think we'll relay tonight's public comment to her. Anybody else wishing to address the school committee can do so now. Good evening.
Good evening. Bonnie Littlejohn, 127 Emerald Street. I only have 2 minutes, so I will get straight to the point. I know that the chair will be assigning subcommittees tonight. I respectfully urge those who will be on the Policy and Procedures Committee to discuss and include a no homework policy during the December, February, and April breaks. There is currently no policy addressing homework over these breaks in the Student and Family Handbook, Code of Conduct, Program of Studies, and Caregiver Resource Guide and Program of Studies. I am a parent and educator. I cannot comprehend how my 2 children have had homework over school vacation breaks. I've been a parent in the Malden Public Schools since my oldest was at the ELC in 2008. In middle school, my daughter once had a teacher who assigned a project over break. The teacher offered some help during the break via email. However, she eventually emailed my daughter and wrote that she would not be able to answer any more questions during the break, as she was on school vacation. So the teacher can get a break, but my daughter could not. And I won't even get into how my daughter was on an IEP and didn't have her SPED supports at home to support her with this project. If the teachers can have a mental health break, why can't the students? Prior to vacation weeks, teachers assign work which is due after vacation week. However, there is not enough time to do the work without including the vacation week. That is how they get away with it. They give the work with some time prior to break, but it is challenging to actually complete it
30
without
seconds.
using the vacation time. Students need the mental break, not just educators. Please include a homework policy in the Program of Studies or handbook that allows students to have no homework during break. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go back online for a second.
All right, our Zoom.
Hi. Can you see me?
Good evening.
We can hear you, so if you could just introduce yourself and state your address.
Yes, my name is Fern Rometti Brown. My wife, 2 daughters, and I have lived in Malden since 1988. My family came to this country as refugees. Our family was murdered because we are Jews. When the Massachusetts Teachers Association decided to engage for the first time in international affairs that has nothing to do with work issues, I couldn't sit idly by. Why did the MTA decide to get involved in foreign policy as it regards Israel and Gaza? Why now? Why this conflict? Consider your answer to that carefully. The position that the MTA has taken is not the full story. It is based on the rhetoric of terrorism. Hamas, a terrorist group that has as its charter to eliminate the only democratic state in the region, Israel, and all the Jews, both known as Yehud, teaches their young children to martyr themselves and is trying to get the world to agree that Palestine exists as a state, even though they refuse any offers to create one, unless there is the complete annihilation of Jews and Israel. When Hamas calls for a ceasefire, what they mean is that when Israel stops defending itself, Hamas will then be able to kill the Jews and take over the land of Israel. Hamas does not care about the Palestinians. Otherwise, they would not build tunnels and aim missiles at Israel from under residential areas, mosques, and hospitals. They would give the humanitarian aid allocated by the world so that Gaza could build infrastructure and get people out of refugee status and, in fact, develop a beautiful tourist area.
30 seconds.
By aligning itself with the rhetoric of Hamas from the river to the sea, meaning Itbaq el Yehud, slaughter the Jews, the MTA is emboldening Hamas and not helping the Palestinian people at all. Jewish Voice for Peace ignores all of that, and the so-called justice then strengthens a terrorist group, giving it credibility. Is that who the MTA wants to be seen in alliance with? And it should help them get free of Hamas, meaning allow Israel to do the job of destroying this terrorist organization. This is directed at the MTA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else wishing to address the school committee? All right, we're going to end that portion of the meeting. Let's now hear from our superintendent. Yep. Everyone, we're just going to take a brief recess to allow us to reconnect with our interpreters.
Intervalo para conectar os serviços de interpretação.
Somebody if they're not going to pop up. I can't get French. Mandarin. But it's not taken. Yeah, I might have to just not have it's going to be, unfortunately, yeah, when I close it, Mandarin and French. They're not taking, even when I...
All right, everyone, we may have a hiccup with Mandarin and...
Chúng ta có thể là
طيب جميعا قد يكون هناك عطل مع الماء.
So anybody needing translation from Mandarin and French, please let us know after the meeting. All right, let's go over to the school superintendent for district updates and highlights.
Hi, good evening. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope that you had a chance to rest and that we are ready again to start classes. Sadly, we started the year with two deaths in our schools, one from a student from BB and a former staff member from the high school. Our former staff member from the high school was instrumental in opening the daycare in partnership with Catholic Charities. So I just want to say to the families that they are in our prayers. We are going to go with the district enrollment, an update on human resources, some highlights about the district, and then we are going to end with a beautiful video from Malden School. So in the enrollment, thank you. So we can see the comparison on the enrollment. We still growing steadily. So we have 6,476 students. In the district enrollment, in the next slide, you can actually see it per school per grade level. You can see the enrollment in there and also the totals. This is available anytime that you want us to share with you, but this is of last Friday. Saying that, we go to the Welcome Center. Right now, we have students who our applications are in the queue, and for kindergarten, we have 9 applications that are still being processed. From grades between 1 to 12, we have 24 applications. And knowing that our amazing Welcome Center is working closely with the families, by the end of this month, we are going to be able to have processed all these applications. That means working closely with the families, making phone calls and making sure they come. If there's anything missing in applications, we actually notify them right away. There is a waiting list in our schools, and BB has a waiting list for kindergarten, grades 5, Fairway in grades 2nd, 4th, and 5th grade. Linden, we have a waiting list in kindergarten, and Salemwood, we have a waiting list in kindergarten and grade 8. Now we're going to the beautiful thing about our students and how diverse we are. So we have 1,707 multilingual learners, but we also have what we call former English learners, and that is 1,022. Our top languages, things have changed in the district more and more, and we can see that Portuguese now is the leading language spoken in our schools by 28.7, and Spanish is following Chinese, Haitian, and Arabic. Now we are going to human resources. The updating here is that we have still some educators that their licenses are going to expire, so our amazing team of human resources has been working with staff, notifying them, sending them emails, reminding them that they have to reapply for their licenses, and at the same time, if they need any courses, we have been offering a lot of professional development. We still have 41 members in emergency licenses. Once again, the human resources staff is working with each individual in here. We have 6 that don't know license, and we are going to work with them. We have faculty that needs SCI endorsement that is mandatory by the state. So therefore, we are working with every single individual that is in this category, trying to make sure they're going to be ready when we start posting positions. So that leads me to the next slide, which is please join the Malden team. It's an amazing team. We have amazing students, great colleagues. So in here, please share it with anybody that you want to in any of your platforms, so we will be able to be fully staffed in September. We have great highlights. We are very, very proud of the work that we have been doing as a team in the district. Some of you received last week or 2 weeks ago the highlights from the district. We had our professional development, which is called the Symposium. And this is outstanding because teachers have a lot of options on how to sign up themselves for professional development. This year we have 596, actually, I would have to say, in January 2nd, we have 596 people that responded to the survey. In comparison to the November 7th, that was 453 responses. We are running very strong professional development, and that's thanks to all the feedback that our educators provide at the end of the workshops. And I want to thank Emily Peña, Pam McDonald, Ellen Kelleher, and also all the directors that are here for the amazing work, because they're the ones also running some of these professional development workshops. Now I'm going to invite Pam Stasiski, who is going to provide us with some information that we have been asking for, and that is I-ready data, chronic absenteeism, MCAS, and how we are doing as of today.
Good evening. First of all, we'd like to share some information about our I-ready data, which we are administering in grades K to 8. This is a reading assessment that measures a variety of reading indicators from phonics through vocabulary, reading comprehension in not only fiction and nonfiction literature. You can see we have 3 years worth of data here. We do a snapshot in the fall, the winter, which we just completed, and also the spring. And this is the number of students that are performing at or above grade level as defined by this nationally normed assessment. As you can see, we've been fairly stable in the fall, with a bump up again in the winter, and we're expecting another bump also in the spring. Another piece, while this is important, is that we're starting to look at internally is about the amount of growth, how much students learn from year to year. For example, you could have a student that starts the school year 2 years below grade level. But if they finish the school year 1 year below grade level, they've made some pretty tremendous progress, even though they may not show up on here as being above grade level. So internally, that is a report that we're starting to look at, and I've seen some pretty amazing results there. If we go to the next slide. We also have our 3-year K-8 longitudinal data for IXL, which is our math assessment, which again is very similar in that there's a fall, a winter, and a spring assessment. And you can see the number of students performing at or above grade level at each time slot. The one thing that is important to understand is the threshold to be at grade level in the fall is lower than what it would be in the winter, which is lower than what it would be in the spring. So it's like the bar moves up each time. So for you to be above that bar on grade level, you actually have to be making annual growth. So when we go from 43 to 47%, it's also meaning that those students that were at grade level in the fall would also have to be learning basically 4 months of material in mathematics in a 4-month period of time to be able to be in that winter number. And that is true for both iReady and for the IXL data. Next slide. This is some information that we had shared earlier in the year that we also wanted to highlight about our multilingual learners at the high school level. We did find a very large jump in the number of students who were making progress towards English language proficiency, and that progress is actually being defined by the state in what is a reasonable but yet aggressive proficiency trajectory. And so as you can see, we went from 11% of our students on that trajectory to 21%. The state did not project that we would be expected to make that big of a leap, and so that's why we're in the category of exceeding the target. Next slide. We also wanted to look at graduation rates, and if you've looked on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website, which is a public website that's available to anyone with internet access in the world, you're going to see a lot of different pieces of data under the school profiles. One of them is graduation rates, and you may notice there are 4-year graduation rates, 5-year graduation rates, there are graduation rates, and there are also adjusted graduation rates. So I thought it was important to, first of all, understand what these terms are. I think we know what a graduate means. But when we're talking about a graduation rate, what they're looking at is the number of students that start the year in 9th grade and who graduate in 4 years. So that's what's on top of that's the numerator of this fraction. For the graduation rate, what is in the denominator is these first-time 9th graders in that cohort, plus any students that move into the district throughout high school and taking out those that leave the district. That's how they calculate that graduation rate. The adjusted graduation rate does not include any of the transfers in. So for example, if you have someone that moves here as an 11th grader, but they're in the year of graduation of that cohort of 9th graders, they will be in the graduation rate, but they will not be in the adjusted graduation rate because it doesn't count the transfers in. And if you think about it, if you have someone transferring in as an 11th grader, then our contribution to that child's education is 2 years rather than 4 years because they came to us as an 11th grader. And so that's why it has those two different values. So now on our next slide, we actually see our 4-year graduation rates. And you can see if you move the slide up just a tad, you can see the purple is the adjusted graduation rates, which are always going to be slightly higher. And the green is the 4-year graduation rate. And as you can see from 2018 all the way to 2022, and we don't have 2023 numbers yet, those will be out later, not sure exactly what month, but it takes a while for the state to actually process all of that data from across the state, and especially when you're talking about, for example, maybe some summer graduates. And we just concluded our state reporting for the entire state at the end of December, so the state needs some time to calculate that, so that's why there are not the 23 numbers there. Next slide. Now here are the 5-year graduation rates. These are the students, very similar definitions, but they're for students who graduate in 5 years instead of in 4 years. And you can see the yellowish color, and then the orange color is the adjusted values. These only go up through 2021 because, again, you're thinking about 5 years graduation, so it's always going to be 1 year less than what is available for the 4-year graduation rates. Next slide. Another indicator related to graduation rates are dropout rates. And so, again, it's important to understand the definition that the state has put forth is what is a dropout. So a dropout is a student in grades 6 through 12 who is enrolled at some point during the school year, and they are no longer enrolled on a particular date. The dates there are October 1st, March 1st, and the last day of school are the state reporting dates that we are required to report it, on our students. It's actually pulled directly from our Aspen student information system. But for example, if a student was enrolled in September, they started the school year, then they would be looking at, were they enrolled on October 1st, were they enrolled on March 1st, and were they enrolled on the last day of school? And it's looking at someone who has not graduated from high school and does not meet any of the other criteria, such as they transfer to another district, they transfer to a private school, things like that. Sometimes we will have students that show up as dropouts that did transfer to another public school. We learned that they moved to another community and then found out that other community, the students did not follow through with enrollment in that other community, so they end up coming up as a dropout in our numbers because they didn't enroll in the school system. So now that we understand how they calculate what is a dropout, here's our Malden High School dropout rates. Even though the definition said it goes all the way down to 6th grade, on the state side, they only look at it for the high school. And you can see our numbers hover around 3%, a little bit over 3%, but this past year of 2021-22, it was at 3%. And again, this is information that takes a while for the state to consolidate across all the school districts, so that's why we do not yet have the data for 22-23 that will come out later this winter or spring. Next slide. We also looked at dropout rates by grade level, and so you can see from 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade that typically we're seeing the red and orange bars are typically a little bit higher than some of the other bars, so it's indicating that we typically have students that are dropping out as a 10th grader or an 11th grader more often than is either a 9th grader, which actually makes a lot of sense because a lot of times as a 9th grader, you may not have reached the threshold of being 16 years old, and I would think that a lot of students, by the time they are a 12th grader and they see the finish line that close, that hopefully most of them would stick it out and cross that finish line. But those are our numbers by grade level. We also looked at historic dropout rates by ethnicity. The one thing to note is that the multiracial category is a smaller number of students than most of our other categories, and whenever you have a small population, those percentages can bounce around a lot, and it may not have anything to do with any kind of a a systematic process with that particular population, where if you have a larger population, such as the white or Caucasian population, with it being a much larger proportion, if there's a number that bounces up really high or really low, that's something really to pay attention to, because you've got some numbers behind that that you would not expect to jump around a lot because of the size of the population. We also looked at dropout rates by two different student populations. We had our students with disabilities and also our English language learners. And you can see the numbers here are definitely a bit higher than they are overall. So while they are smaller numbers than the whole population, and thus they're going to bounce around a bit more, this would also probably be something that would be worth looking into and exploring. Another indicator on the website are mobility rates, and there are lots of different ways that we can look at mobility. There are stability rates, there are churn, I think there's 3 or 4 more other types of mobility rates. And it's basically giving you a sense of how much of the student population is consistent from year to year or over the course of a year. I chose to look at the stability rate. I think it's a very intuitive type of mobility rate, and it's not an extremely complicated formula, so I think it really lends itself to being able to understand from a wide audience and see what information is here. So the stability rate is measured by the number of students who, again, were reported in October and March and June, divided by the number of students who were reported in October. So for example, if we had, say, 1,000 students in October, on October 1st, then what the state would be looking at is, of those 1,000 students, how many of them were enrolled in Malden on March 1st and were enrolled on the last day of school. And if they were enrolled on all 3 of those dates, then they belong in the numerators as a fraction out of that 1,000 students as a denominator. So it's a very straightforward calculation. Now that we know those are the 3 dates that the state looks at, here's our stability rates that we have had from 2017 up until 2022. Again, there's going to be some time before we're going to have the 23 numbers. As you can see, they tend to hover around 85% to 90%. So there's between 10 and 15% of our student population that we do not have all school year. They either come after October or they leave before March or the end of the school year. Next slide. Now we're going to shift a little bit to our MCAS scale scores and looking at average scale scores. To give a sense of this, it's valuable to kind of understand what the scores, what they are. So basically, the lowest score that a student can get would be a 440, and the highest score that they could get would be a 560. So when you're looking at averages, you have a sense of kind of where that falls. These are the 4 categories of performance levels that students earn based on their scale score, anywhere from not meeting to partially meeting to meeting and exceeding. And we look at these. Tonight we're going to look at these in ELA and math, and then we're going to talk a little bit about why I'm not sharing this information for science. So here's our average scale scores for ELA from 2017-18 school year to last school year of 2022-23. You will notice there's a blue bar, a red bar, and then there's a blank. The blank was COVID. We did not have MCAS during COVID. The other thing is to note the year after that, we started coming back with MCAS, but the first year after that was a shortened, it was about a half of an MCAS to kind of get back into doing an MCAS again. So you can see the red and the blue were pre-COVID. The other three were after COVID. And the one thing that the state has looked at across all their data and with the accountability system is the intent of let's get back to pre-COVID levels. And as you can see that we've got a little bit of work to do in some areas to get back to those 2018, 2019 levels. But you can also see at the high school level, we're basically already there. We could speculate about, you know, why that is, and a lot of it they talked about, mentioned earlier today too, was also when did, what grade level was the student in when it was COVID? Did they miss their third grade year? A real critical year for learning how to read. There are other times where it might be a little bit easier to recover. And so that's the goal right now, is to let's get back to pre-COVID. So here's our ELA results. Now we're going to look at our math results. Similar type of thing. You see blue and red prior to COVID, and you can see the bars after COVID. And if you look at 5th grade, you can see, are we back to pre-COVID levels? Not quite, but almost there. And you can see a really strong trajectory going up from the 479 up to the 490. Next slide. So why aren't we sharing this same information on science? Well, the first thing is, prior to COVID, the science test was what we called the legacy test. It was the previous version of the assessment. It was on an entirely different scale, where 240 was that magic number that you wanted to be proficient, you were 240. Well, you saw the numbers up there, 440 was the lowest number. So prior to COVID, you're dealing with a test that's on an entirely different scale than what the test is now. We also had a year of COVID, so there's no results. After COVID, for the high school, there actually wasn't an MCAS. The state said if the students are performing well in their science class, we're going to take that as kind of the indicator. And at the earlier grades, there was a pilot for a new science assessment for a piece of it. So that was a little bit different. And now we are at a new MCAS, just as we did in ELA and math. We went from the legacy MCAS to the next generation. We now have a new science MCAS, which is on the same scoring system that the ELA and math, which is the 440 to the 640, I believe. So with this kind of hodgepodge of bananas, apples, oranges, and pineapple, we really don't have enough of anything to do comparisons, possibly 2 years of MCAS. So it would probably be much more valuable to look at the science from a historical standpoint in a couple more years when we actually have 4 years worth of historical data on the same scale. And especially because we only test in the state in 3 grade levels, 5th grade, 8th grade, and at the high school level. Having more information over a longer period of time for science would be wise. Next slide. We also want to mention about chronic absenteeism, which we had brought up in our accountability report earlier this year, and how we were so excited to see that we were exceeding targets or meeting targets in every school for chronic absenteeism. Just want to remind you, when we're thinking about chronic absenteeism, the state has a definition, and that definition is a student is missing 10% or more of the days they were enrolled. So that basically means you have to be enrolled at least, or attend at least 9 days out of every 10 school days. So if you were only enrolled for 2 weeks, you can't miss any more than 1 day, or you're going to be listed as chronically absent. So it doesn't matter if the student is enrolled with us for all 180 days, or they're enrolled with us for 1 week. It's about how many times are they attending. It's not necessarily even consecutive absences. And the thing is also, it doesn't matter for this whether it's excused or unexcused absences, and that is not to make a judgment, but it's the concept of missed instruction. So it's kind of like if I have a prescription from my doctor or for my kids through a pediatrician, the idea is how often am I adhering to what the doctor is asking for me. So it's almost like it's a dosage. Next slide. So now we're taking a little glimpse into where we are right now. And you can see from the state, we've got our 2019 data, our 2022 data. And so remember, 2019, prior to COVID. 2022, post-COVID, and really trying to get back into in-school learning for all students all the time. And we have our 23 chronic absenteeism, and then we've gotten a snapshot because we have a vendor called Open Architect, which is allowing us to look at some information in a more holistic way that it would be very difficult for us to calculate individually, because it has to take into account how many days the student was enrolled. So we can't just take a snapshot of this time and this time. It's like, were you enrolled for 10 days, 20 days, 90 days? And then calculate what percentage of time you've actually attended school. And so you can see the numbers there are looking very, very promising because they are scanning down there lower than what they were in, for example, even 2022. So we're hoping to continue on that trajectory as well.
Thank you, Pam. So one of the things I have to say about the district is that actually it's in the better shape than expected in many other districts. As you can see, the data in literacy, numeracy, chronic absenteeism going down, attendance going up. So we can see that the district is actually moving forward when we compare it to other ones. I would be glad to share that comparison. So I have to say, very proud of the work that has been done to all the directors. Erin, thank you for the amazing work with you counselors. So the district is posting an amazing direction, I have to say, in every single area, including the ELs and the students with disabilities. So now we are going to conclude with a...
Let's hold that video for 1 second. Any questions from the members on what you heard? And we'll do the video last, okay? Let's go to Ms. Horty.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple questions. On the very beginning when we were talking about enrollment, Superintendent Murphy, we don't list a waiting list for Forestdale. Does that mean that they don't have a waiting list?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one question. Is it okay if I just
Please.
ask? Sure. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name.
Pam?
I apologize. I had a question for you, Pam, about something that you mentioned in terms of dropout rate. This is okay
Please.
if I ask you this, right? I was interested in something that you said. You said that students leave our district and then not enroll somewhere else. But then you said they did go to a different school, and that, I'm confused. Can you help me?
Sure. So when students leave our district, they can leave for a variety of reasons. Hopefully, they are leaving to go someplace else, another school system somewhere. What I have learned recently, we've had 1 or 2 students that I've discovered that we thought they were going to another district. The family had informed us they were moving to a different community. And when I was doing our state reporting and we were double checking all of our dropouts, a student that was listed what I would assume would be a dropout, we're like, they're not a dropout. Come to find out when we contacted that other district, the family did not actually enroll in that other district. So they get counted as a dropout for us when we thought they were a transfer.
So just to clarify, so we transfers, they go to another district, they don't count as dropout for us. They have to be enrolled, officially enrolled in another school. But when we don't know where the students are at, there's not any way to communicate with any school, or we don't know where they are, that is not a good dropout for us. And that's why the high school and the middle school, they make a lot of phone calls because we need to find out if they have been enrolled in another district.
I mean, for safety reason alone, right? We want to make sure we know where our kids are. One other question. Just because I can't remember, and I'm hoping that you can, I know that the passing rate for MCAS graduation requirement was changed recently in the numbers in terms of the actual number needed to get. And I know it's 4 something, but I don't know what, and I think that might be nice to just.
I would feel more comfortable looking it up. Okay. But typically, what is required for graduation, and I might have somebody here that, one of our directors that might be able to confirm, is a student for ELA math being in the meeting the standards category.
Okay.
For science, I believe they can be in the partially meeting, and that still meets the requirement for the MCAS portion of that. Students do have multiple opportunities to take the assessment, not only in the thank you, as a team, yay. Not only in the spring, but there are also retests that students can take, and there's also another process, if I remember correctly, called the EPP, that if there are situations to where another method of determining if a student is meeting the standards, a plan can be put into place. And can you remember what EPP stands for?
Education Proficiency Plan.
Education Proficiency Plan. So those plans can be put into place to show, if a student can show that they actually have mastered that particular content, that can also take place. And I believe there's also even a waiver process that can be appeals. So lots and lots of different opportunities, but that threshold of what is considered meeting is usually around 500.
So it's, I think part of what you're asking, with COVID, they made it 455 for English and 469 for math. That standard is changing to 470 for everyone. I believe it's starting the class of 25.
Okay.
And then science is the same, it's 470 is like baseline. But when they changed from the 200 system to the 400 system, there was a lot more leeway. They had to norm it based on kids' need to graduate. So it was 455 and 469, which still holds true for this graduating class, but it is shifting, which will have an implication for our graduates going forward, particularly with the ELA. Does that answer the question?
Yes, that was a concern that I had too. I didn't know if we had, this is another topic for another time, but just planning about what that that scoring will mean for our high schoolers.
We have courses in place for MCAS prep for when that's happened, and we worked a lot on that between 9th and 12th grade, but it is a growing concern. So growing the number of students who may need appeals and need prep courses to bridge that gap is something that has been strongly considered by the directors and the administration the past couple of years.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you, Ms. Horty. Other questions from the members? Let's go to Ms. Rose Zyberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for staying up for questions. I'm curious if you know, we've got the page for the MHS dropout rate. Do you know what the state level is for that? Are we compared to the state?
I do not, but I can certainly get that information for you and share that at a.
You're just going to be guidance counselor.
Okay.
So last I checked this past year, because we worked a lot on this as well, we were 2.8, I think, this past year. The state is about 2.6. For gateway cities, I will say we are proudly at the very top in terms of the good direction, not the top of the dropout rate, the lower dropout rates. But we are just above the state average.
Very good. And the stability rate, just so that I can make sure I understand it, is that looking at actual students that they track or not, or is it just numbers? So is it saying that, student A was here at these measured times, or, so if it's 2 students, but is it, they track those same 2 students to be sure? Or is it just
Yes.
numbers? So, but
Yeah,
it is
no,
like, so it's
it's
identified
actually
by those actual
tracking,
kids.
like Jimmy Brown.
Right.
They're gonna look at Jimmy Brown on October
that.
1st, March 1st, and the last day of school, and determine was he there all 3 times or not.
Perfect. And the chronic absenteeism, do we have any idea for our students, how many may have been due if we didn't have to? I was surprised at that it's even an excused absence. You're still part of considered chronic absenteeism, even if you have an excused reason for being out. Do we know what our numbers are for kids who maybe were out and come under that category, but actually were excused absences?
I don't have the breakdown of excused versus unexcused, and the state acknowledges that no matter what the targets are, they're never going to expect a school system to be at 0 chronically absent, because there are going to be students from time to time who are going to be hospitalized, or there are going to be other types of situations where being out more than 18 days in a school year is going to happen. But the idea is to minimize the amount of those kinds of situations. So when it is, excused or not excused, and then I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Spatafor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Stay right there. But first, quick to the superintendent, just on the enrollment data, specifically, actually, the wait list for grades. I'm just looking to see if we could possibly, at our next meeting, get a breakdown on what those wait lists look like per, so you're telling us BB has a wait list for K and 4th grade. Can we get actual numbers that go with that?
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
That would be helpful. Please bear with me as I flip through all my questions here, and some of them have already been answered by my colleagues already. But specifically, I wanted to, quick question on the 3-year iReady data. What was those grades? It doesn't say at the top.
It is K to
K to
8.
8?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then on the multilingual learners, and I should have done this for all the other folks up here. We talk about exceeding target, so 21.2% are exceeding target. Is there just a net target for that information?
So for this particular piece of information, similar to what it is for students that are attending in October, March, and the end of the school year, what they're doing is they're looking at each child and seeing if they are on the trajectory where they are going to be proficient in English within 6 years. Is that correct? Because that's what the research literature says it takes for students to become proficient. And so what they're measuring is, are they on that trajectory? And if they are, they're going to be counted as in the category of on that trajectory. And then they count the number of students that are meeting that trajectory versus those that aren't meeting that trajectory and come up with a percentage. And what they found out at the high school in 2022, there were 11.4% of those students that were on that trajectory. So then what the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education would say is, what is a reasonable target? If a school is at 11.4%, what would we hope that they would do the following year? And I don't remember what the numbers are, but they use statistics and they actually calculate what that value would be. They clearly would not expect a school district to double the number of students that were on that trajectory. But that's basically what the high school did. They basically doubled that number of students. That's why they were in the exceeding category. For example, if the state had said, well, you're at 11%, we're going to expect you're at 14% the next year. Well, if we were at 14, then we would be meeting the target. If we were at 12, we would probably be considered improved but not meeting the target. And if we went down to 9%, we would be going actually in the wrong direction. And there's a category for that as well. Does that help?
It completely helps. So we're highlighting that big jump, but if I'm correct and we had a bucket that's met target plus exceeds target, we're going to be way upwards of, I'm hoping, you know, in the maybe 40, 50 percentile. So I'd love to see that data if we have that.
We can get it for you.
Yes, and a lot of this piece of information right here is actually on the DESE website under the school profiles.
Yep.
But we can also highlight that information to also make sure that it's very understandable about but basically what they're saying is we don't want to hold you to a standard that somebody else would be doing. We're going to hold you to a standard compared to yourself. If this is where you were, if you were at 11%, what's reasonable to put you on a good path? And that's why each one of the schools will have a different target depending on where they were.
Thank you. And that kind of, I love to see us highlighting so much improvement, but it also leads me into the slides further down that kind of speak to our dropout rates, specifically to the Latino category, which is concerning. So I don't know, and I really don't have a question, more just a statement of us kind of diving into that. Why is that population, when we're really putting so much effort into their English proficiency, why are we hitting this roadblock where then there's this decision to end their education? So
And we can certainly dig into a lot more of that information, and I'm sure there's a lot of information, not only from the academic standpoint, but also from the cultural standpoint and the family standpoint, that would take a look at that. And also, I think a very important piece to taking a look at this is when did those students come to Malden? Or when did those students come to the United States? Because certainly if you come to the United States as a 16 or 17-year-old and starting high school, and you're seeing what it takes to graduate, I know from working in other districts too, while I have not been in that role, I could imagine that 16 or 17-year-old could be looking at those requirements and say, I have to climb a mountain here.
And then last, so I don't take up any more time, we talk about, so I'm going to jump to the MCAS, and we talk about this getting back to pre-COVID. I will say I am not impressed with pre-COVID numbers either, because when we look at the data, and specifically I'll just pull up ELA average scale scores at the high school level. Our current is 499, but our pre-COVID is 498. So I don't know, and I'm the anti-MCAS person up here. I don't particularly like MCAS or standardized testing, but I just don't understand why we keep on saying, why we go back to especially when all of our numbers specifically never go over 499. I mean, we might have one or two, so we're never ever getting into the meet expectations. Why?
So another piece of information that I would like to be able to share at a future point in time is not only looking at average scale scores, and we can even look at proficiency levels, but it's really looking at growth, because growth is an indicator of what we are doing to take the students from where they are when they show up on our doorstep, whether that is in kindergarten or whether that is a 17-year-old, and where do we take them? And the piece is we can look at growth for MCAS, but we can also look at growth for our iReady data and our iExcel data. And I actually looked at some of our growth for our iReady data today. That's why it's also not in here. And I was very impressed with a lot of pieces of where we were seeing tremendous growth. For example, one of the places you want to see growth is you want them to be at a 50% mark on iReady by this time of the year. In some cases, we were seeing 70, 80, 90, which means they are nearly making a year's worth of growth by now. But the point that I think you're also talking about that's important is why. And it's just as important to know why we don't have certain results that we do have, but also why we do have very positive results in other areas, in particular schools or particular classrooms, and really dig into that so we can start to learn. Because when you look at your successes and you understand why, you can replicate them. If you look at your successes and you don't know why, then you're just lucky. And we don't want to be lucky. We want to learn from places where we're being successful, and we want to also learn from places where we're not being as successful as what we would like. And so that's why I would also like to, in future, to really highlight growth, and whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, to really take a look at that, because that really shares a lot more information about our contribution as a school system.
Thank you. I agree. Yes, I'd love to see that. So thank you. That is all I have, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from the members? Just if I might, from the chair, why now? Why all this data this evening? I would presume the graduation rate percentage, we would have that for September, October the latest. The MCAS data came out in October, I think November. Why all of this in January?
I think there's two reasons. Certainly for like the iReady and the iExcel data, one of the reasons is that we now have just finished our winter snapshot, and so that would make some sense to be able to share that information. Some of the information about dropouts and graduation rates aren't always available at the beginning of the year, so we have to wait a little bit longer. The other thing is, if I'm sharing everything at the beginning of the year, I'm going to be up here for a really, really long time. And this is already a lot of information. And so to maybe break it up into more manageable chunks might make more sense to do some of it in the fall, some of it now, some of it in the spring.
Got it. And then to add on to what Ms. Horty asked about that dropout rate, can you run a query on those that have transferred, but we don't know where they ended up, yet they're counting against us as having dropped out here in Malden?
I believe that actually at the high school, they've done a dive into every single student that's listed on the dropout report, because that is a report available from the state. And I've looked at some of that, and they've known where some of them have gone. They've actually re-engaged some of them, and that's where I found out some of them when the high school had said, oh, they moved to such and such a district, and I'm like, well, why aren't they being reported by that district? And so I actually emailed the district, the person that does what I do in that district, and one of the districts, they said, oh yes, they have enrolled. We just haven't got them completely in the system yet, but yes, they're not going to count as a dropout. And another one had said, we've never seen this student before. So
does this figure represent true dropouts?
Somehow, yes, because this is an evolving number. So sometimes it's a negative dropout. But the high school, I mean, every number here has a name, a student name. So the high school, what they do is try to search and find out, and throughout the year to find out where the student is at. So that number that is right now not a dropout, a true dropout, might change in a positive way if we find out that the student enrolled in another school. So this number changed, so it's not the same number all the time. So if we have, let's say, Ellen, we don't know what happened to Ellen, but then in March, we find out that Ellen actually is in another district because a friend told us about it. We contact that district, and we will be able to count that student as a positive dropout. There are codes that we have, so we can present that information to you next time. Erin will be presenting with Pam about the dropout, and also the codes that we use, because the state is very, is by codes, what is a good dropout or bad dropout.
I could be splitting hairs, but this number that you presented this evening does include people that have legitimately transferred out, yet we don't know where they are, yet they're counting against us.
Erin is the one that's been looking at the list of, what, 40 to 50 students or so?
Not really. So the students have a SACID, right, their state ID. A state ID can only be claimed at one time by one student in one school system ever. So like if a student transfers to us and we go into like the state system to find their information, it'll say, oh, they're still claimed by another district. We can't get them till they release them, so same thing the other direction. So we own a SACID until another public school district picks it up. So when they pick it up, then it's their weight on their system. But until they pick it up, so sometimes our kids will fill out a mass transfer card, I'm going to Everett. And then we say, okay, great, we give them all their stuff, and then their family brings them to Everett, but they don't finish the enrollment process. If they don't finish it, the SACID has never been claimed by the other district, therefore we still own them. But we don't know that per se. I will say a registrar would do that work. But it's one of those things that we do the best we can, and the other thing that makes it fluid is the recaptures. So if a student with chronic absenteeism is gone for 20 days, we reach out, we can't get in touch, they are considered a dropout at that point if the police can't find them and whoever, and then they re-pop up 4 months later. Oh, I moved to Florida with my aunt for 2 months and then I came back, but I never enrolled in Florida. I'm just back. So then they're a recapture, so they were a dropout and then we have them again. And that happens actually fairly often too. So if it happens after October 1st or before March 1st, they're only captured on those dates across the whole state. So that can affect when we have that information. But we do have a running list of every student and what every principal and every counselor knows about their whereabouts if they're not with us. And that is an ongoing thing.
And sometimes the SACID number can be a same student getting a replicate another SACID number because the parent registered the kid with a different name. So most of the time you come with 4 names, 2 first names, and then 2 last names. We might have Ligia Noriega, but my mom might register me as Beatriz something. So that means I will be like another student being the same student. So that is the cleanup data that Pam does all the time. And thanks to Pam, we are actually
it's much better
110% right with the state. So all those things happen. So going back to the dropout, we will be able to give you all that notification or the data about the dropouts and also the codes that we have to submit to DESE.
But that's why it's a little fluid.
Fluid, very fluid.
Under teaching licensure, is 160 considered a lot?
But not all of them. Let me go back to the numbers. So it's not a lot for what we had in the past. We had done a better job supporting them. So 72 is still licensed, it's just that the licenses are going to expire. So those are the ones that we're targeting 100%, like emails, reminders. The emergency licenses, we are working with them, trying to make sure they're going to get their licenses before the end of school year so they can apply for the jobs that they have. And the waivers, the same thing, trying to make sure that they're going to complete the coursework. It's not a lot for what we see, especially when we have 72 that are pending. It's up to the individuals to actually renew their licensures. And Emily's in her office has been giving a lot of professional development that teachers can use in order to renew their license.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, now let us move to...
Fun time. A
Oh,
video.
yeah, let's do the video, and then we'll do subcommittee assignments.
Yes. And Ray is here. I want to recognize Principal Garcia. Thank you for being here. Yay. And Principal, well done.
Hi, I'm Ray Garcia. I'm the principal of the Linden STEAM Academy. When I first arrived here, everyone told me how great the community was here. And when I say community, I mean the students, the staff, and our families. And our students are amazing. The work that they do in their STEM classes, their academics, and their math and science, ELA and social studies, it's an amazing job that they're doing. Our teachers are really here to support our staff. Our students, not only do they love academics, but they have a lot of fun. We have Tiger TV, and you'll see that our students have a lot of video that they're sharing with you. They really want you to know who they are. And you know, it's a great club, and it grows every year. It gets better and better every day.
My name is Jordan Yost. I'm in my second year as the K-2 assistant principal at Linden STEAM Academy. My favorite part about Linden is the amazing school community we have here. Our parents and families and caregivers are super involved and play a really active role in our students' lives. Our students are obviously amazing. We have a great teaching staff. They're very hardworking, patient, and always willing to go the extra mile for our students.
Hi, I'm Mr. Rodriguez. I'm the 3rd and 5th grade vice principal. When I first got here, I know a lot of great things about the school also. And guess what? It's all true. Whether it's our community, outside community, our kids, our teachers, our staff, we're all here as one family. It's not just academics, which is super important, but also social emotional learning. And regardless of what grade level, we all take care of each other. And that's a great thing about Linden STEAM Academy.
Hi, I'm Julie Jones, the assistant principal of grades 6, 7, and 8 here at the Linden STEAM Academy. A focus of Linden is our amazing students and their fabulous families. Every student has a story, and the caring staff and I are here to add positive, memorable chapters in their book during their journey with us.
My name is Jade, and I am the 5 to 8 administrative assistant here at the Linden. My son is in 4th grade here. He's been here since kindergarten in 2019, and that's when I also joined the PTO. And last year, I started as the admin assistant, and I absolutely love getting to know everyone's children and being able to be a happy face in the main office. And my favorite part about working here is being part of the community, getting to know the community of Linden students and the teachers and the faculty. I love coming to work every day, and I love seeing all of your children's happy faces.
Okay, everyone, now down to subcommittee reports and discussions. We're about to announce our subcommittee assignments. It says Mayor Christenson, but believe me, Vice Chair Jen Spatafora played a big role in this, so I'd like to segue over to her to make the announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as we are at the beginning of our 2-year terms, we have assigned those to the standing subcommittees as well as ad hoc committees. So I will just take you through briefly what those are comprised of. Our standing committees are budget, policy and procedure, public facilities and safety, technology and student services, and negotiations. Ad hoc committees include equity and opportunity, superintendent's evaluation, and newly established calendar review. And in addition, we also are liaisons to outside, I'll just go through them. Sick Bank, Shore Collaborative, our Malden High School Alumni Association, our CPAC, Special Education Parent Advisory Council, as well as our LPAC, English Language Learners Parent Advisory Council. So those committees we all sit on, and that is how we do our job. whether it's our budget, whether it's creating or amending policies, or making sure that our facilities are running up in order. Would you like me to name the chairs to each? So for the Budget Subcommittee, myself, Jennifer Spatafora, will be chair, and I will be sitting with Mr. Drummy, Mr. Gray, Ms. Horty, and Mr. McCarthy. Our Policy and Procedure Subcommittee will be chaired by Ms. Sharon Rose Zyberg, and she will be accompanied by Mr. McCarthy, Ms. Macklin, and Mr. Bernard. Our Public Facilities and Safety Subcommittee will be chaired by Mr. Drummy, who will also sit with Mr. Gray, Ms. Horty, and Mr. McCarthy. Our Technology and Student Services is chaired by Mr. Gray, and he will sit with Mr. Bernard, Ms. Rose Zyberg, and Ms. Spatafora. And Negotiations will be chaired by myself, Ms. Spatafora, and accompanied by Mr. Bernard and Ms. Rose Zyberg. Our ad hoc committees will be Equity and Opportunity will be chaired by Mr. McCarthy, and we'll have Ms. Macklin and Ms. Horty. Superintendent Evaluation will be chaired by Ms. Macklin, accompanied by Mr. Drummy and Ms. Rose Zyberg. And Calendar Review Ad Hoc Committee will be chaired by Mr. Bernard, accompanied by Mr. Gray and myself, Ms. Spatafora. Our liaisons will be Sick Bank, Ms. Sharon Rose Zyberg. Shore Collaborative Liaison, Ms. Elizabeth Horty. Malden High School Alumni Association, Mr. Robert McCarthy. The Special Education Parent Advisory Council, Ms. Spatafora. And the English Language Learners Parent Advisory Council, Mr. Joe Gray.
All right, there you have it, everyone. So if there are any questions, queries, qualms, concerns, just let me know after the meeting. We can always try to amend. But this will be for the next session, next 2 years, okay? All right. All right, I guess we have to approve it. Motion by Ms. Spatafora, seconded by Mr. Bernard. Any immediate questions? And Ms. Rose Zyberg, I think you already have your first assignment from Ms. Littlejohn. So let's have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Drummy? Yes. Mr. McCarthy? Yes. Ms. Spatafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin?
Yes.
Ms. Horty? Yes. Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard? Yes. Ms. Rose Zyberg?
Yes.
Mayor Christenson?
Yes. So that carries unanimously. All right, now we're at points of personal privilege. Any points of personal privilege? Mr. Drummy.
Real quick, Ferryway School PTO will be having a meeting this Wednesday at 6:30. Just go to the Ferryway PTO website with all the information on how to connect on with Zoom. They will be having a movie night on January 19th. I'm assuming it will be in the auditorium. They haven't said it yet. Information will be going home to the parents soon. And then their annual their annual paper goods drive is from the 22nd of January through the 15th of February. So that's it for the Fairway. On a personal note, I want to wish our former Vice Chair, Mr. Lenny Iavino, who received a very rare document from our chairman at his 80th birthday party the other night. He was very impressed with that, I must say, Mr. Chairman. And last but not least, I want to wish my wife a happy anniversary. She's put up with me for 40 years, which is a lot longer than you people have. And there is a canonization coming. I have been notified by the Vatican. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, anybody else left to right? Okay, how about right to left? Let's go to Ms. Rose Zyberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Linden STEAM Academy PTO, they're saying to please save the date for the Malden Family Title I. They're hosting a family fun night at Linden tomorrow, Tuesday, January 9th at 6 p.m., a Zumba party and pizza. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Macklin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is from the ELC and Principal Lawrence.
The ELC will begin to collect for their annual basket raffle during the month of January. Flyers will be sent home in the student's backpack. On February 2nd, from 5:30 to 7:30, the ELC will have a Winter Wonderland dance and basket raffle. Cost is $5 per person. All are welcome. Flyers will be sent home. I also have an announcement about the Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration that's coming up. It's on Monday, January 15th, from 2 to 4 p.m. at Emmanuel Baptist Church. It's located at 20 Hillside Avenue in Malden. There's keynote speakers, youth speakers, performers, and more. This is an open and inclusive event, so we're hoping to spread the word. Light refreshments will be served, and everyone is welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Horty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On January 10th, the Forestdale PTO will hold a meeting over Zoom. If you go to the flyer that Mr. Weldy sends out, there is a link in there. You can also find them on Facebook under Forestdale PTO, and I believe also Forestdale Families. On Martin Luther King Day, like Ms. Macklin mentioned, there's no school, just a reminder for everybody. On the 25th of January, Title I will be holding a family Zumba event in the cafeteria in Forestdale. Please join us for some dancing. And on, just to trying to get this in everybody's calendar soon, on February 6th, it's a Tuesday, there's an early release in the district. I would be remiss also if I didn't mention and give a huge thank you to Rich, Dave, and Nick for getting the school grounds ready so that the kids could return safely to school today. It's very much appreciated, and their hard work does not go unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Spatafor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see, BB School. So again, no school on Monday. Don't show up, please. The 17th, another Title I Zumba night, 6 p.m. The BB School Site Council will be meeting on January 24th at 5 p.m. via Zoom. They will send that out, and I will share on all of my social media pages. And we will be wrapping up second quarter, so keep your eyes out for report cards. Those should be coming home on the 5th of February. And outside of the school world, we will be having, the Chinese Cultural Connection will be hosting a new Lunar New Year celebration on Saturday, February 3rd from 1 to 5 p.m. at the Malden High School. And lastly, I just would like to actually take the time to thank my peers for once again electing me as vice chair for the next 2 years. I appreciate all of your support in the work that we do up here. So a big thank you again for your nomination.
Thank you, Ms. Spatafor. Anything from Mr. Gray?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, nothing in particular. I'm just happy to be here. And congratulations to Jen for a job well done. And we wouldn't have anybody else as vice chair but Jen. She's talented, she's strong, and she's a good leader.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I want to end tonight with an important announcement. After our last meeting, the vice chair, Jen Spatafor, and I met with our superintendent, and we agreed to work together on the transition to a new superintendent at the end of this school year. Now, as you know, Dr. Noriega Murphy has led this district for the past 2.5 years, including the incredible difficult return post-COVID. And I know I speak for the entire school committee in appreciating the passion she has brought for education to Malden and for the work that's been done to set us up for future success. I think we all know running a vibrant urban school district is incredibly demanding, and I want to thank her for her work here in Malden. I know we are just beginning to tap our full potential as a district, and with the foundation in place, this elected body, and the great work done on a daily basis by our educators, the future, I am convinced, remains bright. So I look forward to working with the superintendent on this transition, and we will keep the district updated as to our next steps. So with that being said, we will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Spatafora, seconded by Ms. Horty. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummy? Yes. Mr. McCarthy? Yes. Ms. Spatafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin?
Yes.
Ms. Otti? Yes. Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard? Yes. Ms. Rose Iber? Yes. Mayor Christensen?
Yes, that carries unanimously. The school committee is hereby adjourned.
Thank you, Fox Translation. We will see you